Well, look, he's got such a big foot in his mouth. I'm not sure you're going to get it out. But on the other hand, I'm glad he's in there. I'm glad he's in there because him being the way he is and saying what he says, the way he says it, I think shakes things up, and I think that's very needed because on the other side, it's so bland, it's so boring.
But I love him. I just want to see a channel 24/7, just him talking, because it's amazing.
Amazing.
I love it. He doesn't mean to be funny. That's the beauty of it. But I think, what if we just told him he got in?
Okay.
And...
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Are you interested in the two movie stars above? If so, please comment one below. In a rare moment on live television, two entertainment icons, Robert Redford, the silver screen legend with a sharp composure, and Ricky Gervais, the master of satire with a no-holds-barred sense of humor, came together to openly criticize and dissect Donald Trump. This unexpected combination not only brought bitter laughter but also sharp attacks, making the audience unable to take their eyes off the screen.
Again, I'm nearly numb to it now. I didn't even bother commenting on that tweet the other day where he said, if I had, even if that terrible shooting, I'd probably have gotten in there even if I didn't have a weapon.
In February 2018, after the horrific shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School, Trump declared that he would absolutely go in to confront the gunman, even if he was unarmed. Who wouldn't dream of being a hero, objectively? But when the world learned that he had avoided military service 5 times during the Vietnam War because of heel spurs, a convenient diagnosis from his family doctor, this bravery suddenly sounded like a kid's boast at recess. I can fight a lion. Oh, no, my daddy can fight a lion. It would be adorable if it weren't coming from the man who once held the nuclear codes in his hands.
It's so empty. And it's like Looney Tunes and not Merry Melodies.
Not only is this a blimp-like ego show, it's also absurdly unrealistic. Robert Redford called it Looney Tunes without the happy tunes, and it is. It's an animated show where the protagonist paints himself as Superman, but the audience sees a clown gesticulating in an imaginary rainstorm. To be fair, Trump is not the first to exaggerate to make himself look good. What politician doesn't? But few take it to such new heights of naivety. Perhaps he thinks that if he says it loud and often, people will believe it, a good tactic. If his audience weren't the entire world with Google to check. It's a childish play, but sadly it's played out on a real stage.
Right, this is a man who was scared of a tame eagle. So this is not a brave man.
On a rainy day in 2017, the world was treated to a model family moment from Trump. He walked up the stairs of Air Force One, umbrella in hand, his blonde hair still dry, while his son Barron, then 10 years old, trudged behind him, dripping wet as if he had just been showered in the park. Objectively speaking, this was not the crime of the century. Who hasn't forgotten to share an umbrella in a hurry? But when he loudly declared that he was willing to rush into danger to save other people's children, as in the Parkland shooting, the scene suddenly became a perfect satirical punch. A hero who didn't bother to look back to see if his own child was being drenched by the rain, demanded to protect the children of the whole country? Perhaps in Trump's mind, the umbrella is a symbol of ultimate power, reserved only for the most important person, that is, him, while everyone else, even his own blood, is left to fend for themselves.
So bland, it's so boring.
What's even funnier is that this is not the first time this contradiction has been noticed. Trump has cultivated an image of the great protector, but his actions tell a different story, one that Robert Redford might call bland and boring if it weren't so funny. To be fair, he's not the only parent to accidentally leave a child behind for a moment, but few have turned that inadvertent mistake into vivid evidence of their own hypocrisy. He may not have meant to get Barron wet, but who cares? The image speaks for itself, and it paints a perfect picture, a man who claims to be a savior, but won't even bother to share an umbrella. A brief family drama, but enough to make the audience laugh and cry.
Of course, this is a man who had to be helped down the stairs. Right, this is a man who was scared of a tame eagle. So this is not a brave man.
It happened in August 2015, during a Time magazine cover photo shoot. A trained eagle, named Uncle Sam, spread its wings, and Trump immediately flinched, cowering as if it was about to peck him in the face. The video went viral, becoming a godsend for those who love irony. Objectively speaking, anyone can flinch when a large bird suddenly flaps its wings. It's a natural human reflex. But when you're someone who constantly calls himself brave, strong, and even dares to rush in to confront an unarmed gunman. This moment suddenly becomes a gem in the treasury of unintentional comedy. A tame, gentle eagle like a pet makes him tremble, and yet he dreams of dueling lions or confronting enemies.
You know, it's it's crazy stuff.
Robert Redford called it crazy stuff, and it was crazy. It was more than a fleeting moment of embarrassment. It was a vivid demonstration of the gap between Trump's rhetoric and reality. To be fair, he's not the only one who's afraid of animals. Plenty of people are afraid of dogs, cats, even pigeons in the park. But it's rare to be so afraid of a gentle bird and yet portray yourself as a fearless warrior. Perhaps bravery in Trump's vocabulary exists only on paper, in tweets typed from the safety of his sofa, not in real life, where an eagle can make him cringe. A masterful display of self-delusion, no script, no director, just a bird and a camera.
I think he's got that childlike narcissism that he sort of, if he says it, it sort of might be true. But
Yeah.
I think there's a bit of troll about him.
Trump seems to live by the philosophy of a child. If I say it loud enough and long enough, it will come true. From declaring his 2017 inauguration crowd the largest in history, though aerial photos showed it to be woefully sparse, to calling himself a stable genius in a 2018 tweet, there is a startling naivety about his narcissism. Objectively, this is not an uncommon trait. Children often shout, "I am Superman," and believe they can fly. But when he is an adult, and has led an entire country, this telling it like it is suddenly becomes a running gag. Plus, as Robert Redford observed, he has the foot in his mouth, a euphemism for a habit of speaking without thinking, but still making things shake.
He's got such a big foot in his mouth. I'm not sure you're going to get it out. But on the other hand, I'm glad he's in there. I'm glad he's in there because him being the way he is and saying what he says, the way he says it, I think shakes things up.
Trump's troll side is his trademark. He loves to throw bombshells, calling opponents Crazy Horse or Sleepy Joe, just to see people freak out, argue, and talk endlessly. To be fair, this talent for trolling has helped him dominate the media for years, turning criticism into attention-grabbing fuel. But it must be admitted that when no one in his life dares to stand up and say, "You're talking nonsense, stop it," this childish game escalates into a soap opera, with the world as an unwilling audience. Redford is happy because it shakes things up, and it does, but at the expense of a leader who thinks he's a superstar, when in reality he's just a clown with a big microphone. It's a strange combination of naivety and willful mischief, and it's admirable, in a very odd way.
This is a man who's, people fell for him because he was a good businessman. Well, actually, someone looked at it, right, and they worked out that if he'd have just put his acquired, inherited wealth on the top 50 stocks, he'd be $6 billion richer than he is.
Trump built his reputation on the image of a genius businessman, from buildings with the word Trump in gold to The Apprentice, where he played an unstoppable tycoon. Objectively speaking, not everyone is good at investing. The stock market can be a nightmare for many. But when he considers himself a business king, a winner, losing to a lazy person who does nothing is a painful slap in the face to his ego. Trump's brilliant businessman image, as Redford puts it, has turned out to be hollow, a beautiful facade that's been dogged by failed ventures, from a failed Atlantic City casino to the doomed Trump shuttle airline. To be fair, he's still a billionaire. No one denies he has money.
It's so empty.
But his genius may lie more in selling the Trump brand than in actually making money from business. He lost the stock market, something that even someone with no knowledge of finance can invest in and win, which is a remarkable feat in the world of failure. Perhaps he should change his title from genius businessman to self-promoter. At least that's what he's really good at. A funny story about a man who calls himself Midas, but turns out to be good at turning gold into trash. The lawsuit stems from journalist Timothy O'Brien's 2005 book, Trump Nation, in which O'Brien wrote that Trump's net worth might be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, not the billions he boasted about. Trump, with an ego bigger than Trump Tower, promptly sued O'Brien for defamation, seeking $5 billion in damages. The result? In 2009, the court ruled against him because he failed to provide convincing evidence of his net worth. Objectively, losing the case doesn't mean he's not rich. He may still be a billionaire, or at least a very rich millionaire. But when you've built your entire career on the title of great billionaire, failing to defend that title in court is a ridiculously embarrassing blemish. Redford calls it crazy stuff, and it is. A man so confident that he takes others to court to prove his wealth, only to be told by the legal system, "Sorry, not enough evidence." This is a scenario that even a B-grade comedy would have a hard time coming up with. To be fair, Trump's ego may be bigger than his assets, and this lawsuit is just another example of that. He not only lost the lawsuit, but also lost in the eyes of the public, who now have another story to laugh at every time he brags. Maybe he should sue the mirror in his house, because it doesn't reflect the billionaire he wants to see. A brief legal drama, but enough to illuminate the fragility of self-proclaimed reputations. Trump is a disruption machine with no off switch. From his absurd statements like "I know a lot about wind," 2019, to calling the pandemic the flu, 2020, he has turned politics into a chaotic reality show where anything can happen. Redford describes him as putting his foot in his mouth, a euphemism for his habit of speaking without thinking, but still shaking things up. Objectively, this kind of disruption is not always useless. It breaks up the monotony of politics, where politicians often deliver platitudes like machines. To be fair, Trump has a strange appeal, like a car accident you can't take your eyes off, or a Looney Tunes episode, as Redford mentions, without the happy melody to save it. But what is the price of this disruption? A guy who doesn't mind saying the stupidest thing, as long as everyone is looking at him. Ricky Gervais points out that no one in his life would dare call him an idiot, and that's why the chaos continues. He calls his opponents childish nicknames, spreads baseless rumors, and turns every debate into a comedy arena. To be fair, this talent for attracting attention has propelled him to the pinnacle of power. Not everyone can do that. But it also raises the question, what's the point of shaking things up? When all else is pointless noise, he may not be the smartest guy in the room, but he's certainly the loudest, and in an age when attention is king, that's a form of talent, albeit a clownish one, a strange phenomenon, both fascinating and terrifying. The 32% that Ricky Gervais mentioned may refer to the percentage of Trump voters in the polls at the time, circa 2016 to 2020, who often described themselves as forgotten or disempowered by modern society. Objectively, the feeling of being left out is real for many people, especially white working-class communities in the Rust Belt, where jobs have disappeared with globalization. But the irony here, as Gervais points out, is that when they cry about equality, it's as if the fact that others, women, people of color, immigrants, have some rights is taking away the privileges they've grown accustomed to. When you live in a world where things have been tilted in your favor for so long, leveling the playing field suddenly feels like oppression. What a strange logic, right? Trump has cleverly exploited this fear, turning it into fuel for his Make America Great Again campaign, a vague slogan that appeals to those who feel left behind. To be fair, he is not the first to play this card. Politicians have long known how to whip up popular discontent. But the irony is that a billionaire born with a silver spoon in his mouth, raised in a mansion and never known what it means to be forgotten, has become the spokesperson for this crowd. Robert Redford might call this mindset bland and boring, and rightly so, because it repeats like an old record, blaming others instead of looking at oneself. Perhaps the equality they fear is not the loss of power, but the loss of the feeling of being special. An ironic play where the richest man leads the crowd in a cry about injustice, truly a masterpiece of the times. In an interview, Redford said, "Did you think Donald Trump would get as far as he's gone? If he was going to be the dragon? Believe it or not, I think he'd be great for a sequel. As the dragon, he wouldn't have to worry about animation." This is the height of irony, as Redford responded to the question of Trump going this far by imagining himself as a dragon in a fantasy movie. Objectively, the image is perfect, a giant, fire-breathing, roaring, chaos-causing creature. Does it sound like someone we know? Redford is not only surprised that Trump has climbed so high, from a TV entrepreneur to the presidency, but he turns that surprise into a sharp irony. Trump doesn't need animation, because he is already a living, breathing, larger-than-life character. From his fiery blonde hair to his poisonous smoke-breathing words, Trump is a dragon who doesn't need CGI to make an impression. The line "he'd be great for a sequel" is a double whammy. It's both a reference to Trump being the perfect villain for a movie and an implicit mockery of the fact that America may have unwittingly acted out the first part of this movie when it elected him president in 2016. To be fair, Trump has a knack for making things dramatic, from his dramatic press conferences to his midnight tweets that send the world into a frenzy. But the funny thing is that Redford doesn't have to imagine too much. Trump has turned himself into a dragon in the eyes of many, with the ability to spew shocking words and burn down any piece around him. A role so natural that Hollywood simply set up the cameras and let him do it. It's a shame that the audience, that is, us, don't have the option of leaving the theater when this movie gets too long. Redford expresses deep concern about the direction of America, and while he doesn't directly blame Trump, the question is posed right before he mentions him, making Trump an unavoidable part of the concern. Objectively, Trump's tenure, 2017 to 2021, has been a tumultuous one, from the trade war with China to the COVID-19 pandemic that he handled with statements like "it will go away," 2020, to the riot at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, when he refused to concede defeat. America under Trump is not only divided but also chaotic, and Redford, as an observer, clearly feels that shadow growing. Redford's "I don't have an immediate answer" is a sincere admission, but also a veiled irony. Even a seasoned man like him is stumped by the conundrum of Trump and his legacy. To be fair, Trump is not the only cause of America's woes. Issues like economic inequality, racism, and a decline in trust in institutions have long been present. But he is the perfect catalyst, someone who stirs up that mess with the enthusiasm of a child playing with fire. Redford is worried, and who wouldn't be, when a dragon like Trump is leading the conversation. America's future is like a book that no one dares to turn the last page, at once thrilling and terrifying. It's a big question, and Trump, like it or not, is an indelible part of it. To be fair, Trump also offered hope to some. His supporters saw in him a man who dared to speak his mind, who dared to break the mold. But that hope came with chaos and division, the exact opposite of the gentle, positive vision that Redford dreamed of. Redford's film may have been a gem, but while Trump was the focus, it was like a lone beacon in a storm, beautiful, but hardly bright enough to change the mood. A sad contrast between art and reality, between ideals and the man who led the times. So, Trump, the dragon without the animatronics, or just a clown in the great American play? What do you think of this performance? Leave a comment below. After all, in his time, everyone is entitled to a little growling, right?